All right, we're recording. Welcome, everyone, to another exciting meeting of Cassandra Kubernetes Slack chat. So we are in 2021, and as I mentioned in the mailing list, I did want to do a little change up to try to get more participation. Where I actually have some sort of an agenda that we can follow, and hopefully get more participation in. My my biggest my biggest concern is that this just turns into a small group, a small club of insiders, that we don't start getting more community participation. And I think we can, but we'll see if we can do that. Oh, good, there's Cyril. So what I want to do is, as I mentioned in the email, just do some updates on some of the core things that are happening around Cassandra Kubernetes. That's the Cassandra operator, Cassandra, what's going on with Cassandra. I would like to invite some other projects in, and I've talked to some other folks, like I mentioned, OpenEBS, Prometheus. I think Aricto is another that would be interested. I mean, we could start. I could start asking, like, hey, show up and let's, and it's not just like a meetup pitch type thing, but like, hey, what's your, how do you want to participate, and maybe talk about a little bit about, hey, here's how we want to work with Cassandra Kubernetes or help make it better. Because this is totally takes a village. I mean, if you look at all the things that are required, it's not just an operator, not just a backup, it's not just Medusa. I mean, there's storage, there's networking, service mesh, which is networking, security, tons of stuff to be involved. And from a community standpoint, I really love the crossover here. Like, we can get a lot of different projects involved and turn this into something pretty awesome. So any questions or comments on that direction?
One question, Patrick. So you mentioned Aricto. I know those guys, and the last time that I met them, they were pretty kind of like closed source. So does that mean like anybody, open source, closed source folks that want to use Cassandra with Kubernetes?
It's a good question. I think my preference obviously is open source, right? And just because this is an open source project and we want to make sure that it's free as in freedom, free as in beer, as much as possible. And but that, there's going to be folks running it on Amazon or on Azure or on GCP. So that's proprietary-ish. But, I think it's, I think that there's a lot that people can offer. And I know there are some things that are quote unquote proprietary, but that's okay. I mean, if like if you're using ECS, does that make it unusable? Maybe not. Let's just see how it goes. And if I'm open to all kinds of suggestions. So yeah. Any other comments on that? Okay, so let's move on. Because Cyril, I'm gonna lean on you for an update on the operator, just because I think you're the one that's probably most closely involved with it. Sorry, surprise. Jim wasn't able to make it here, so Cyril, maybe you can give us a quick update on where things are with the operator.
Yeah, sure. That's why you contacted me. So I got two PRs that were merged in. One, sorry for the noise. One regarding the volumes, and the other one for the labels. Now instead of specifying zones, you can just specify any labels that you want to add to the pods spawn from the stateful sets, and also to be able to add volumes like the volumes that we use inside cars, for example. So those two PRs were merged, and I think last time we talked with Jim, we said that we were at 40% of the amount of work that we estimated regarding the compatibility to with Cascade. So that's where we are at. I also spent some time with John regarding the backup and restore, and see how Medusa works, how it compares to what we use at the moment in Cascade. And we also started to use Curl from Kudos in order to test and compare Cascade to Cas operator and estimate what is missing and how one thing works on the, compared to the others. So that's pretty much where we are. But there are other tickets there. And I hope we'll spend some time talking about those and how we can move, make some progress on them.
Just want to say, super excited to see those your PRs land there, Cyril, especially around the volume mounts. I was talking with the user just yesterday morning, and I was like, yeah, I don't think it's released yet, but that's something that is going to solve the issue that they were having, where they didn't want logs on a local hoster volume. They wanted it in a persistent volume. So nice to see those changes.
Cool, thanks.
Anybody want questions or comments around that?
Yeah, Cyril. So I'm looking at the PRs because I did manage to get a blog post out, by the way, on our site, because it's easier to write on a blog post in WordPress than it is on our Cassandra site. But I'd like to keep a journal of what we're doing and publish as soon as possible. That's why I want some clarification. So the volumes, I see it's this the one that's 354. I understand what that one is. Could you tell me which one you mentioned related to the labels? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm trying to get access to the list to get the number. I mean, yeah, it should be close and from me. It's thinking a little bit.
Okay, I see it. 320. It's that use labels instead of zone.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. That's all I had. Appreciate it.
That's good. All right, cool. Anything else, anyone?
We can talk about some Cassandra stuff.
Well, that was my next topic, and my dogs are barking, so it must be time for Cassandra. So, Cassandra update. John or Chris, who wants to take that?
Well, let me start with a segue between Cas Operator and Cassandra.
Ooh, I love a good segue.
Yeah. So the Cas Operator images that it runs are with the uses the management API, and they're up until it was 2 weeks ago. Eric Merkel, who's on the Cassandra team, published images for 3.11.8 and 3.11.9 with the management API. So those are available now, and there are changes in with beta 4 of Cassandra that break the management API, and Eric's been working heads down trying to get changes in the management API to work with beta 4. Because I think so we want to be able to use the latest and greatest for 4.0. So we'll definitely put out info, as it becomes available in the Kubernetes Slack channel, on the ASF Slack, on the Cassandra mailing list as well, once we have something. And that's relevant, obviously, to just anyone using Cas Operator by itself, and as well as to Cassandra.
To be clear, was that a protocol change that made that necessary?
Yeah, there's the changes in the v5 protocol that were used in classes classes that are part of the v5 protocol that are also using the management API that that are the breaking change.
Awesome. Do we want to get a copy of those coordinates out too, so they can be included in that blog post? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, just put them in the chat.
Oh yeah, you're in Slack. You'll get it.
Yeah, I log out of Slack so I can get work done. like come here and not get bothered by other people. But yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll get it from Slack. So just to clarify, John, basically, because of this breaking change, it's the CAS operator is affected, the management API is obviously affected, and Cassandra is affected. Do we know like roughly ETA of resolution?
Unfortunately, Eric's not on the call. I'd hopefully within the next week or two. Yeah, I'll have an image for beta 4.
Well, if our Republic survives next week, then yeah, it'll be cool. But if you guys can do it after that too, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Awesome. So more in the Cassandra space, if you've been checking out the issue board, you'll note that there is I'm bringing it up myself, want to use the right term here, a milestone for 1.0. Is that a milestone? Yeah, it's a 1.0 milestone. So that's a collection of tickets to reach what we would call the base production ready iteration on Cassandra. Really excited to see that scope kind of dialed in. Would love for feedback and just some other eyeballs in that space. There's also a big change that just recently landed where you might have seen some emails come out on the mailing list where Cassandra previously had 2 Helm charts. One would install the operators and the second one would install the actual cluster. And those have been merged thanks to Michael Berman on that one. So now it's, when you do a Helm install of Cassandra, it's everything all in one go, which is a nice change to see land. Just a simpler user experience.
All right. Any other questions or more to talk about around this? I know it's like new year, new problems, right? We don't have to fill the hour, by the way, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not specific with this, but just one question I had. I saw it looked like the project has now gotten a hold of the ability to push to the Apache Docker Hub. And I wondered if anyone had started talking about getting official, or project created Docker images into
That's amazing.
the Cassandra repo.
That is amazing.
Wow. Okay. When did that happen, JD?
So I know Mick made it happen for the test images to be able to push the test images there. So I would assume since we can push test images there, we could push distribution images there now too. I don't know. That was
interesting. I'll see if I can follow with Mick just to get the official stance there. But I always thought that was kind of a hands-on, like you can't do that. But so there's an official Apache Docker Hub.
Yeah, there's Docker Hub / Apache. Yeah, there's an Apache Docker Hub org.
So we're not talking about the library image. We're talking about an Apache.
Yeah.
So like the r/_/Cassandra. So if you just do Docker pull Cassandra, is that going to mirror what's coming out of the Apache organization? Or maybe that should be the goal?
No, not right now. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Now that we can push into the Apache, we have you can have Apache / Docker Hub, Apache / Cassandra is a thing now. There's nothing in it, but it's a thing.
So there's not an Apache / Cassandra image, but there's an official Cassandra.
There's no image, but there's not an Apache / Cassandra image. The current image in Docker Hub is made by Docker.
Yeah.
Made by them and maintained by them. But they encourage groups to take over maintenance from them because they don't want to be maintaining stuff.
Well, that's what I think.
So-
That's what I'm thinking about, because I've talked to the folks at Docker about the Cassandra image that they're doing, and they're like, yeah, we just bump a rev, big deal, But it is, I think it is a fantastic thing, in my opinion, that if Apache is doing the official push, like there's an official Apache repo or a Docker Hub repo with all the projects and all their images. When someone does a Docker pull Cassandra, that should be what is done, and that just seems like the right answer.
Yeah, but and I'll tell you what. I look at the Cassandra. I'm looking at it right now. Right, you look at the Cassandra image, the official Cassandra image _/Cassandra, and they've got from 2.1 all the way to 4.0 beta 3, and supported on all of these different architectures. So the question is, if they will do that, will they expect it all to work like that, right? On working on PowerPC and ARM, just in case. Creating.
That's going to be a thing, right? Hey, as long as it runs in the JVM, we're good. Okay, so because there's to be honest, there's a lot of Cassandra images out there on Docker, but who's the official person? Is it Mick that is the official pusher of the images? Would he be a definitive source on that information?
I know he got it to push our test images up there, so he has credentials to push. So I would probably start talking to him just to see what's up.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I think that would be a really amazing thing if we could do that, but that was not what I was expecting today. And then there's, I think with the beta 4 out right now, that image, is that the image you were talking about for the testing, or is it just for like the nightly build type stuff? Or go look for yourself, dude.
We see.
What are you talking about? The beta 4 image?
Yeah.
Or what? So
yeah.
Docker Hub pushed the official beta 4 image up there, and we can't use it we can't use it from the operator right now because of the management API stuff.
Yeah, they have the testing ones there for sure. But it's all like Cassandra-testing.
Yeah.
It
just rolls right off the tongue too. Testing Ubuntu 2004 Java 11 with dependencies.
Right.
I have to type
so like
that?
those are the images. Those are the images, right? Those are from CI, right? Those are our CI testing images.
Right.
But like I said, like there isn't an actual Apache Cassandra coordinate location. It just has nothing in it.
It's empty.
And so, we could possibly start actually pushing stuff there from the project during releases. It was what I would think, but I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, that's one more Jenkins job, right? Yeah. Oh, I say that like it's just that.
You kind of have to have a good master Docker file and then derive all of the different versions from there, hoping that that master one works. But it would be at least 10 Docker files, 5, maybe 5, between like 2.1. I mean, how far back are we expecting to go on Docker Hub?
Probably to supported whatever we're
supporting. I would just do for all future releases that the project does would be my thought. But I mean, you could also just start with 4.0, but
I'm thinking 3x and 4. Yeah. Because 3, it's not like people are going to be jumping off of 3.0 and 4 and going directly to 4.0 the day that it's released. Well, maybe they will. I shouldn't be so hasty.
Talking about images, I think hello guys, I arrived a bit late. Talking about images, we had an issue opened on the Cascop config that we wanted to have some explanation how to build an image, because as you said, official images, you can't use it in with CAS operator because of the API management. And we're waiting for somehow to build our own image with our own exporters and stuff like that. So we haven't seen progress on that issue with that. I guess it was not that prioritized, but could we have some update on that?
Yeah, okay, is that the one that Cyril just posted in Zoom chat?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ah, in the chat, I didn't see the chat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's a valid request. We can get some documentation out in that space, just like how to build the Cassandra image or how to layer things on top of an existing one. What are you looking for there? Just make sure that I'm scoping it correctly in my mind.
How to build an image that is CAS operator compatible, and how to get the API in there, and maybe it's on top of an existing image. I mean, that's fine because we have existing image, and if we want to add the necessary items for the CAS operator to run.
I got you. I think it's like, what is the interface, right? What are the requirements that you must fulfill in your container for it to work with CAS operator?
Fair enough. What in that regard, is there more appetite to be able to start from i.e. a base Docker image of like your like, I want to say the OS style ones were like an Ubuntu or a UBI base, or are you looking for something that's just like, all right, this should be your base, which is already has the Cassandra, the management API, metrics collector installed, and these are the directories where the various pieces are installed? Those are two different approaches. I'm curious what the preference is.
I mean, I don't think they're that wildly different, right? Because like if you build a base and that is the example, then people will figure out, well, this is how I can make my own, right? If it's commented well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need a specific documentation. Just a Docker file will be enough, I suppose, for us to build upon. But I mean, that's our needs. Maybe there is more general requirements.
I mean, if you have an immediate need that you're trying to figure this out, it's the Docker file and the management API repo.
Oh, okay. We need to. Cyril, if you know where that is, I don't.
Well, in fairness, there's multiple Docker files there.
Hmm.
I think the documentation might be helpful.
So all that you need to do is go through all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I should do my homework. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Come on, Frank. Don't just show up and not spending 8 hours of research.
So I think this raises an interesting point, though. I feel like I personally hit a number of issues with trying to figure out what coordinate is being pulled when, or what specific Docker image is being pulled when, which one should be used with CAS operators, which one shouldn't be used with CAS operator. And that's been kind of frustrating for the work that I've been doing personally. And it sounds like when it comes to customization, that would be a headache in that domain as well. So I guess I don't know if I'm commiserating or not. I
Well,
don't know what
like
the
you are.
purpose of that was. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, John.
To ask the question, Bradford, you're saying like you're having trouble doing this, and like I look at the dependency tree here, and these are the Docker files in the management API for Apache Cassandra. It seems to me like those are the most definitive ones to use. Where would the confusion be? Would it be because it's not this and it's the official Cassandra one, or are there other coordinates that are confusing? Because I'm also curious.
Yeah, so if you were to launch this on OpenShift cluster, it would not use any of those containers.
Right. Yeah.
It use a different one entirely. There's a map inside of a file called images.go inside of the CAS operator. And so that's where the frustration is these things are living in multiple places and they're assembled differently. So for example, if I'm not mistaken, the ones in the management API repo are building off of the library, the Docker library Cassandra images and layered on top of that. Some
Mm.
of these other ones are built off of either a UBI image from Red Hat where it's separate. Not the jars, but the binary download is pulled down from the Apache download servers and then built up that way.
Yeah, I see it.
So there are a couple different approaches there.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is I've had frustration with that this week, trying to understand where should this live, and should it live? Should the ones that we're using live in the management API repo? Should they live somewhere else? I don't know the answer to that question, and I assume that's something we'll probably want to figure out sooner rather than later.
I upvote for having a separate repo, even if DataStack's maintaining it right now, with like clarity. Because there would be a definitive place to say, like, here are the definitive containers for Cassandra for now. Because I just looked at,
here's the Docker files to build them.
Yeah. Here's Docker, like Docker 3.11 is using the Docker library Cassandra, and then Docker file OSS is building it yourself, all of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's something we can take into the upcoming weeks to look at getting some of that sorted and provide clarity for everyone on where these things live. Because there have been conversations this week around what should these coordinates even look like? Do you have parts of the management API version and the metrics collector version as part of the coordinate as a whole? Is there inside of the Red Hat lane, they like to have release numbers at the end of it. So in case a package underneath of Cassandra needs to be updated, you can rebuild the container for the same version of Cassandra, but it'd be a different release number, i.e. if there's like a Java update that needs to happen or a Bash update that needs to happen, because there are bugs in Bash, that kind of thing.
What?
Yeah, right. So, but I guess what I'm getting at is the version of Cassandra would be the same, but we'd want to demarcate that it's a separate release, and you would almost treat like let's just take the 3.11.7. You would treat the 3.11.7 tag almost as like a latest tag that points to the current release. Would be the idea. So that's some of the ideas that are floating around and maybe should be codified and put out there for everyone to understand, consume, and know where to pull images from.
Based on conversation, can we update issue number 316 just so that this doesn't get lost in the shuffle? I know there was a couple ideas thrown out here, or is there anything that would be worth updating there? But I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, Frank asked a question, and it's a good one, and I think we've come up with a path, but let's just make sure it gets documented.
I can add a comment. I have it in an outline form right now. I'll summarize the conversation. I'll just paste it in there in a second.
You're too good for all of us. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I think that'll be helpful because this is good. These are good real-time conversations, but if we don't capture it, it'll disappear. Although I do record these, so it won't completely disappear. So, okay.
This raises a follow-up question about what the base of our images should be. The ones coming from Dr. Hub, are those Debian based? Are they Ubuntu based?
They have different ones. That's what I mentioned earlier. They have different architectures. So you could have one that's like the slim version, which is running on Alpine, and you can have one that's like on Ubuntu. That's why there's like 8 different things out there beyond the architectures. Yeah.
So and I'm personally, to put my preference out there, I'm a big fan of the Red Hat Universal Base images, just because they also have an incentive to get underlying packages updated in a timely manner. Sorry, excuse the tiny dog barking. So, okay, that's some more to chew on. I'll open, so not just ticket 316, but maybe I'll open a separate issue and solicit some mailing list feedback to kind of talk through some of the ideas, and maybe we can get to a consensus and get the repo made and the Docker files out there so we're all in the know of where the things are and how they're built.
Very good. Yeah.
So that should be in 1.0, suppose. Need to be documented for 1.0, suppose. Or...
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got another topic. We were talking in the Cassandra. So Cassandra is a Helm chart, and it has two subcharts right now. It has the CAS operator subchart and a Cube Prometheus stack Helm chart to handle the monitoring side of things, specifically spinning up Prometheus and Grafana. And I guess a question that comes to mind and that I'd love to discuss here, we're looking at taking some of the components of Cassandra and making those subcharts as well. So i.e. the deployment of Reaper and the deployment of, I don't think Medusa has its own piece, but I think, well, there are a couple. So the Medusa operator and the Reaper operator, and making them their own separate subcharts. And the idea here is if you want the all-in-one, I need a stack now, I don't have centralized monitoring, I don't have all these other things, just give me a Cassandra cluster or Cassandra cluster with all the fixins, right? You would run the Helm install and you'd be in a good spot. But I also recognize there are people that have things like centralized logging, centralized monitoring, and other needs in that space. Maybe they want to run multiple clusters per Kubernetes cluster, and maybe have namespace boundaries, or maybe they don't even have namespace boundaries. And so the question here is, if we make that change and move towards this composition of separate Helm charts, is the expectation that the default, if you just say Helm install, you'll get everything needed to run a production-like environment, including the repairs, the monitoring, that kind of thing. And then if you wanted to tweak or run some of these services like your monitoring as a centralized service on your Kubernetes cluster, you could disable those features and just have it spin up like the service monitors or the Grafana dashboards. I'm just looking for some feedback here from other people that are running Cassandra.
Come on, Rahul. I know you got something to say about this. And to be honest, Rahul, Cyril, Frank, you're the only non-DataStax people here, so get to it.
Well, I was actually thinking about how to properly attribute all of the participants in this conversation in my comment. That was what I was thinking about. No, no, I listened to what you said, Bradford, and again, it's like the same thought always goes through my mind, right? As the user, sorry, as the complainer versus the developer, right? The complainer in me is like complainer / user, right? With open source, that's what we are. Is the single Helm chart with a few subcharts. It's like keep it simple, stupid. It's great. The developer in me is thinking about, I really like the composition aspect of it because I don't really want to change it now, but maybe in the future I might want to do it. The things that you identified, they make sense to separate out. I mean, you can only go so granular, right? Like logging makes sense, repair makes sense, backup makes sense. Like how much more would you go down further than that? Like, well, let me ask the question. How many subcharts do you anticipate? Like 50 or like 5?
Like 5.
Yeah, I think that's
single digit.
Yeah, I'm down with that. No more than the single digit.
And no using hex either.
Oh, yes, no.
That's fantastic. I hadn't even thought of that. Write that down for later.
Option B. All the way up to option F.
My vision is that you need to be able to take any number of shards that you will need. In our case, we'll definitely get rid of most of them because we have, I mean, like most users with big production, they will have loads of tools already, so they need to pick specific stuff within the Helm. Actually, I have a question. What kind of exporter do you use for Prometheus? Because that's one of the questions. That's one of the reasons why we need to build our own image, is because we use the Instacluster exporter that we add to Cassandra. So, for example, if so, that's one question. Do you have an exporter that you link in Cassandra, or?
Yeah. So it's the metrics collector for Apache Cassandra project. But yeah, that can certainly be subbed out with a different one if you're providing your own exporter and service monitor and all of that. There's no blockers to bring this in. You would just have to have it in your
The image, I suppose.
in the image. Yes, thank you.
That's why we want to build the image mainly.
Yeah, and
Yeah, but
so
also,
so it feels like the more I guess we would say advanced Kubernetes users, the ones that have established clusters, are going to have other needs, right? And they don't necessarily need all the batteries that are included. Maybe they have some of these services are A, already centralized, or B, standardized in their organization, right?
so Cyril was mentioning why we switched to a stack cluster exporter. Because it's benchmark results mainly. Maybe you want to talk about it, Cyril? Or?
No, I was just mentioning the reason why we switched, and at the same time, implicitly asking the question if some work had been done internally to make it more efficient, maybe on your side, on the exporter side, if someone has information.
I don't have that personally, but
Have you looked at the DataStax metrics exporter?
I don't think we.
Because it sounds like this InstaCluster one works similar to us. Like the metrics collector that was mentioned is we put out a Java agent that does Prometheus metrics exporting as well. So it's not going over JMX. So it looks like this InstaCluster one is doing the same thing.
Yeah, you have a link. I can check.
I think. Yep, this is it. AC. Here. Oh, nope. That is the name of a pod. Sorry about that. I could have sworn that was on my clipboard. There we go. That's the right link.
I'm glad that was on your clipboard.
Yeah.
But what a nerd. That's in your clipboard all the time?
I think I was reviewing I was reviewing the pod spec just a few minutes ago. So that's what's in the images that we're shipping now, but any other one can be put in there. And part of the ask for the not just the Docker files, but the steps to build an image that works with CAS operators. CAS operator does not talk to the metrics collector endpoint. So there's no issue if you sub in a different metrics collection agent. We would just want to document how you add the Java agent parameter, assuming that it still uses a Java agent, how you would add the Java agent parameter to the entry point. I think the entry point is key when we're talking about building self-built Cassandra containers. Awesome. I think that covers some of the feedback I was looking for on Cassandra, just sharing the information about the charts. As we start to travel down that path and some of the commits come in, we'll make announcements on the mailing list and in Slack. So you guys can take a look and be like, hey, this is dumb, or hey, awesome, cool. There were some tweaks recently just to the Kubernetes stack integration that I was pushing last night. Sounds about right. And I'm excited to see more of these changes coming because it feels like a more mature solution as the larger shops or the more established production clusters need to tweak and suit to fit their needs.
All right. Well, yeah, I think we're all looking at this repo going, All right. So is there any other topics Anything related to Cassandra Kubernetes that anyone wants to bring up?
Well, we can share the latest test that we're doing on Cascop, because Cascop is still up and running, and basically our internally we have made stress testing on the backup and restore, and we've done some backup of 400 gigabytes of data that went fairly well, and we had some trouble in the restore phase, so we had to harden our vision of the backup and restore functionality, which I think is something that we'll need to test again when we go over to Cassandra. So I don't know if that's something I can raise somewhere as an issue, just to have a look at, because we use internal S3 provider, which is not as strong as AWS, obviously. So when they get like 25 requests of big files simultaneously, then there is some hiccups on the server side. That we may not be the only one doing that. So it may be interesting to have this kind of test case to harden just the backup and restore functionality. So I don't know.
I missed a bit of what you said, but basically you're testing it with an S3 provider for which storage?
Well, we're testing it with the S3 provider that we have internally.
Internally, okay, got it.
Yeah, it's not the Amazon S3. It's just our. We
Object
can't do that
storage.
yet. Yeah.
Is it like MinIO, or is it just like something in OpenShift or OpenCloud?
No, it's a product named Scality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scality is working well, but maybe not that well. We've got big, something like 40 or 30 nodes that are requesting backup at the same time. So it may be not that big, but quite big for internal deployments.
So interesting, because I think of like tools like Snapback that as soon as you run a snapshot, it starts uploading directly into S3. And, you know, when you do a cluster-wide snapshot, you could have as big as your cluster, that many going into an S3 bucket. So I'm actually kind of surprised that this is a bigger issue. Is it maybe an issue of having some sort of a scheduler? Because this is what I worry about, is when you do a snapshot in your cluster, you want to try to time sync those as much as possible. You know, it's the upload capacity that I think that we're talking about on a scheduler. And is this an operator problem, or is this something that goes beyond that, like another service layer?
I mean, I understand the problem, because working with a client where it's an on-premise installation and we're running into similar issues. They use, what is it? Who's the vendor for Qtree? I don't even remember. It's a storage area network, right? It's not exactly S3, and you don't notice the issue until you hit it. So this Scality, I'm assuming it's a distributed object store, but is it because it's a capacity problem for Scality? Right, I'm turning it around, right? I'm saying, is it because that Scality is not handling it, or is it because of what you think is that every other case works? It's just that when 30 nodes are hitting it, it's having an issue with that amount of data.
Well, we've decided that it's an operator problem. I mean, we have to manage the fact that Scality may not be good enough for what we ask it, but we have to handle that case. So it's not that complicated, but it still needs to. I mean, our team say, "Oh, sorry, we had a failure on the restore. Everything is fucked up. Please start again." So that was simple for them.
That's not a good backup then. It's like, only half of it made. Figure out which one when you try to do a restore.
They say it works perfectly with the small data, but when you hit production-like data, then it just fails. So that's why we're doing the testing.
You could have like nodes of terabytes of data flashing up huge files quickly. This is an interesting problem I never even thought about, but it's such an operator problem, I guess. And that's my opinion. This is an operator problem. The operators should work together and you should coordinate. And this is like from an SRE standpoint, this is a huge topic. Like you should have a queue of uploads after you snapshot.
Is this
Yeah,
something that you would
Yeah, go ahead.
do you expect? I think there are a few solutions here. I'm curious the feedback from the group as a whole is: do you expect to handle scheduling when each participant does the upload of their backup, or do you just want to have a knob that you can say, hey, we've got enough nodes, we should probably set the throughput for how fast we want these backups to be pushed off, and maybe we can do them all at the same time, but we have to throttle them down. What do you think is the expectation from an operator to?
I mean, from S3 perspective, they do that, right? You can set those throttles on the AWS CLI, right? If you use the AWS CLI for S3. So that's there as far as the API. So throttling,
like concurrent socket problem.
Yeah. But I agree. I understand, Frank, like what you're saying is that, and I totally think that. Well, I'm trying to ask, like, who knows the internals of Medusa? Like, how does Medusa handle it? Does it do it the same way? Does it just like snapshot and just push it out?
I think it's using libcloud, but yeah. That's my
That's what I would say is we need to make sure Medusa has the knobs. I mean, we've definitely hit this with like at DataStax, we wrote a backup restore service, and you can definitely overload like S3 and your network links. Like if you have the backup stuff is unthrottled, like you when your backups kick off, you see like latency spikes because your backup steals all your bandwidth, right? Like if you don't actually throttle your backup, and stuff like that. Besides, another thing. So if it's not a knob in Medusa, it should be.
I think throttling is required because at least you have this way. You can limit to whatever you want it. But I thought it was worth.
I'm laughing. This is like a problem that I remember solving in like 1999 on Net Backup. It's like the same problem comes again.
It's always the same problem, Patrick.
It's always the same problem. It's just now it has a new name. It's like, oh, my backup in Kubernetes.
Do we need to split files from like R0 to R100? I mean, because that's the way to do it too, right?
Yeah, we should do that. That's a great idea. And then we'll create another cluster to keep track of all your segments. What a great idea, Raul. Don't put that in a PR.
So I guess a logical follow-up from this is that we should probably have some docs tickets filed to say, hey, let's make sure that we're very clear that with these are settings for Medusa that say, hey, you should probably set the throttle for your uploads, or you're going to have a bad day when you go to take a backup, which you should be doing.
You get 1 point for a backup, 99 for a restore.
So that's a follow-up question, Frank. Were you restoring to the same cluster, or were you restoring to a new fresh cluster? And how often do you do either?
In the test, we were restoring to the same cluster because that's the only functionality we provide in our implementation of backup and restore. We wanted the simplest possible, just in case, so that our ops could do backups every day or every 2 hours, and in case they could do a restore of the existing table. So that's what we solved. I think we said anything else would be you guys writing, not you, but our ops writing scripts to manage their own data. The operator was just supposed to do simple stuff, but and how often? Well, I think we do 1 restore a year or something like this. It's just mainly when we have a problem or rollback that we have to do on production. Normally we don't do, but we need to be able to do it when it arises. So it's not. But I suppose if we could do restore to other clusters quite simply, especially with the topology change, that would be quite helpful for the team. Would like to be able to say, oh, I can restore to another cluster, so I can move data from one cluster to another, or from one environment to another. that we cannot do today. But we say we're not doing it with the operator. We stay simple. We don't want to. We count on Medusa for all this, not fancy stuff later.
I mean, if Erecto has anything to say about this, they've got a magic solution on this, on this problem of like taking data on one cluster and using it on another. I don't know if you've seen the demo, but they gave me a demo a couple of years ago.
From who?
Erecto. This is one of the companies that Patrick mentioned earlier. It's quite impressive. It's a company from Greece, I think, and a couple of the guys are in the Bay Area, and they specialize on basically being able to take data in a persistent volume in Kubernetes and essentially using S3 or some other distributed file system. And they virtualize their PVs such that when you're writing data, it's like mirroring the data somewhere else, basically S3, so that if you want to quickly bring it back, it literally within minutes you have another cluster with the same data. It seems cool, but like it is cool. Excuse me, it is cool. It seems like magic. It seems like magic. It is cool.
Seems cool, but it isn't.
But, I mean,
Wait.
the people, the guys are super smart. They're as I said, they're wicked smart. You know, like they really are hardware junkies in the sense that like totally get the hardware on how to like optimize NVMe drives, for example, for this, you know, with S3. So anyways, it would be good to kind of have them talk about, I don't know if they'll give us their secrets, but they've got a cool solution for this.
I wrote a blog post on this last year with them, and actually someone from Erecto was on the call earlier. So if you're interested in that, we can definitely get you connected to him. But yeah.
Yeah, can I raise some points regarding backup? I had some discussions with John this week, and explaining how we do the backups today, backup and restores. We realized that Medusa does a restore by triggering a rolling update. It's kind of a rolling restore, mechanism. While we restore online without shutting down any nodes. And that's something that was interesting to John. He dropped off, but yeah, we wanted to talk about that point and how, just raising the fact that at some point we're going to have to start working on the backup and restore. I would have thought that backup and restore was more important than other points, but yeah, here we are. Just wanted to raise that point.
So like a
that's
live
not a
restore?
solution for us, for example, to restore data and triggering a rolling restart of nodes just to restore one table.
So in your scenario, you would want it to do like bring the SS tables in and run like a no tool refresh. Is that what the expectation is? Or
that's what
because right now
today.
it does. Okay.
That's what we do today in our, using Cascap. So, and so first we restore the files in a temporary location on the same volume. And then when everything is ready, we just truncate the table, create hard links and refresh. So it's really, that phase is really fast. And the downtime should be really quick. But having to shut down node and wait for a complete rolling restart is not something that we're gonna have some fights with our users if we tell them so.
That's fair. Yeah, I'd love to see not a ticket, but yes, a ticket. I'd love to see that requirement put into a ticket form and get some engineering around it, because I do see the value there for sure, especially because it is, well, you're not waiting for it to pull the bits from your object store while the node is coming back up. It does all that in the background. So it sounds like that's a sidecar kind of process, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is also another issue that was raised this morning, not this morning, sorry, this week, with John regarding the time that it takes for nodes to start. It seems that nodes with cast operator takes around 2 minutes or so to start. And I think that John and Jim mentioned that there might be ways to improve the boot time. So this is something also that I think we should look at some point. I don't know why it takes so long, but there is something. Yeah, and if you restore data using a rolling update, then yeah, you just get those two issues together.
Yeah, I could see that slowing things down. The 2-minute startup time, I thought we were bound by that from a Cassandra perspective. Am I completely off base there, Jeremiah?
Yeah, are you seeing a faster startup time from something else?
Sorry, what's the question?
Are you seeing a faster startup time somewhere else? Like, I don't know that you're going to get much faster. I mean, you could possibly, there are like settings in Cassandra you can like set on like the very first time you're starting and stuff, doing a controlled start to say like, hey, Cassandra, don't be so safe, and it'll start faster. But
so I don't have the solution. So when we start nodes in Cascap, we don't wait for the join operator. I mean, we wait for it, but it's not part of the booting time. This is the operator who waits for the node to has joined to add more nodes to the stateful sets. So that's how we do it. This is kind of a scale up, algorithm. Why you start all nodes at the same time, almost, and then you have the management API, checking and saying that the node is ready. So I don't know if it's just the way you do it, and if it's what slows it down, or if it's just the time it takes. But I'm just saying that last time I talked to John and Jim, they had some ideas on how maybe to improve it. I'm not saying they told me how. Just saying. So that might be something to look at. Maybe there is no solution. Maybe there is. I don't know. But it seemed that there was.
I'd love to see like a ladder diagram comparing the two processes, the two startup processes. I think it's good for documentation anyway, but I'd love to just like compare and contrast that, because that's kind of fascinating. I've been super happy with the 2-minute start time per node personally. After dealing with Ansible and things going squirrely in that regard. So I think this is fascinating. I'd love to understand it a little bit more.
I think so, Cyril. I mean, you bring up something that I haven't thought about in a while, because this is a normal course of operations in other databases, right? You don't have to restart to like do a system restore or something like that. And that's, I think, a deeper Cassandra architecture question of, will we ever in Cassandra have the ability to attach SS table, right? And have it just take the directory, register it, and then have it.
You actually have that ability right now.
Well, so then why don't we use
Medusa
that?
just doesn't use it. Medusa just doesn't use it. But you have that ability right now.
I'm not talking about the SS table loader. Like,
yeah, no, you can say like there's commands to say, hey, I shoved new files on disk. Go see those.
Well, but that's different from, isn't that different from like having a different table restored, like registering a new table and like adding the data there? Like,
no, it's been, I mean, that's what that is, right? You can add a new table to the schema, and then manually put the files in the directory, and then say, hey, Cassandra, this data is here. Yeah, you can do that.
No, I know that. I know that. Then you gotta like rename the files with the. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that you gotta do. Like,
no.
All right.
Anyway,
I want to pause everyone. We're 5 minutes over time.
Anyway,
I'm trying to be respectful of everyone's time here. I don't want to turn this into an endless meeting. Appreciate this lively, good meeting, everyone. I want to remind everyone we're doing these bi-weekly. Sorry, to Frank. The next one will be a little later, but then we'll reset. We'll go back. We'll go back in time. So we have the four meeting cycles that we go through. But I appreciate everyone's input on this, and let's take these conversations over to Slack too. This is a good place to do that. They must be persistent. I will have the meeting uploaded here shortly. And hopefully we'll get more people involved. Like, let all your friends know that this is an awesome meeting for Cassandra Kubernetes. But I do want to make sure that we're binding by the time. All right. Thanks everyone again for coming, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for your PR, Cyril. Really appreciate that. By the way, it's really nice to see the forward progress happening on the convergence of features.
Thank you for your time, guys.
What a way to leave on a high note. Nice job, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.